an introduction to Girls on Fire, Gender, Culture, and Justice in YA Dystopia, but also to this idea of YA dystopia and the Girl on Fire more generally. So the Girl on Fire really originates with Katniss, who is the girl who was on fire, or the Girl on Fire. Also connecting to Alicia Keys' song Girl on Fire. So this is an idea that's floating around in popular culture, and here I'm talking about Girls on Fire as the female protagonist in YA dystopia. The Girl on Fire struggles against corrupt power and becomes empowered, and sometimes she even saves the world. There's a pretty wide appeal of YA dystopia right now in American culture and popular culture, and even around the world. We have classic texts like The Giver being made into films, texts that center boys like The Maze Runner, Ender's Game, and also films made from books that are featuring girls as the female protagonists, like the Hunger Games series or the Divergent series. And we see this exploding popularity of books and films like the Hunger Games. We see these books being made into films. We see a ton of other popular press like books and guides and magazines. We see a plethora of fan sites, of products related. We see scholarly inquiry in conferences and published. So what is YA dystopia? There's a lot of different definitions and incarnations, but in short, when we see YA, it means young adult, and dystopia can often be seen as the opposite of a utopia, a community or a society that's screwed up by any number of problems. Sometimes these books are also categorized as science fiction or speculative fiction, and they often overlap with a variety of other genres too. Within that young adult genre, sometimes these are categorized as teen or children's or juvenile literature, and there's a lot of interesting reasons why they might be in these different categories, but sometimes it's rather arbitrary. The American Library Association takes the age range for young adult as 12 to 18, but other sources say 16 to 25, and we know that it's not just young adults or children who are reading young adult novels. What is a young adult? Is it simply someone who's young and might someday be an adult? And we have a lot of classic texts that are YA literature. And again, we'll be focusing on YA dystopia in particular. YA literature often includes coming-of-age themes and the themes of finding yourself. There's often choices and consequences. A ton of other themes that are relevant to teens like friendship and first love and independence and school and religion and racism, divorce, bullying, teen sex, teen pregnancy, ecology, politics, anything and everything that would be of interest to teens or adults as well. These books might be romance or coming of age or problem novels, but again might be overlapping with a variety of different genres as well. When we think about dystopia, dystopian novels might include, for instance, struggles for power, totalitarian regimes, most often a corrupt leader who may be a man or can also be a woman. We might see elements of disease or plague, decimated populations and broken families, crumbling cities and overgrown forests, a need for survival, finding those basic elements of food, water, shelter, clothing. We might find a lack of technology and or a use of futuristic technology, and there's often both a connection and a disconnection from the world that used to be. In this YA dystopia where we have Girls on Fire, the world is often in ruins, but the stories are also localized or geographically contained in some way. So we have stories that are happening in Chicago, New York, Orleans, or what used to be New York, Chicago, New Orleans. Or we have communities that go by the names of the Enclave or the Island. We have factions or districts, or even places that are newly named like Pan Am, New Eden, Reverie, the Republic. The girl is the center. She's often the hope for the future, the leader, or sometimes the reluctant hero. Sometimes she has special powers, but most often she does not. She has skills and talents ranging from shooting a bow and arrow to bringing people together, and she often has help from friends or family and they believe in her abilities, but a lot of times it comes down to that girl on fire. As Kanan says in Immortal Rules, you will always be a monster. There's no turning back from it, but what type of monster you become is entirely up to you. The girl on fire is often up against incredible odds or impossible tasks. Totalitarian power dictates her reality and should make her powerless, but she's not. Oftentimes, the girl on fire is empowered. She learns more about herself and the world around her. She does what she can for her people and creates change. These books are not simply romances. They're not able to be boiled down to the love triangle, or in other books, the love square. These books are bigger. One of the themes that comes out of the Hunger Games is this question of real or not real. So in Mockingjay, this question keeps Peeta on track after being tortured by the Capitol. But this question is also relevant to YA dystopia as a whole. I hear a lot of people say that they don't like YA dystopia or dystopia more generally because of these quote-unquote unrealistic elements. So people find dystopia to be unreal for a variety of reasons. They think maybe the setting is too far-fetched, that in the future it wouldn't happen that way. There wouldn't be districts, or they wouldn't be arranged in that way, or there wouldn't be these factions. This is an unrealistic way to think about society's organization. Other things they think might be unrealistic are that children have too much power and too much influence. And oftentimes the science fiction aspects make it unreal for readers as well. But I don't really think any of these elements are unreal. And in fact, the unrealistic elements also are not really that far-fetched. So for instance, vampires in the Immortal Rules trilogy, maybe not that far-fetched from humans being manipulated into other kinds of beings. The new kinds of development in human abilities. Cyborgs, like in Partials or Tankborn. Alien invasion, which certainly we can think that after an alien invasion we would be living in a dystopia, perhaps. The magic or the supernatural, like in Shadows Cast by Stars or in the Dustlands trilogy, or the chaos. So again, what is unreal is perhaps up for debate, and depending upon how much readers are willing to suspend their judgment of what is real and unreal, can make this genre richer. A variety of different quotes and views of literature help us think about how we might consider YA dystopia as realities. One being fiction reveals truth that reality obscures, and the idea that artists use lies to tell the truth. But some people do think the Hunger Games are real. Perhaps not the Hunger Games as they are outlined in Suzanne Collins' books, but there's a variety of discussions about the realness of the Hunger Games. The Huffington Post, for instance, had an article, "The Hunger Games are real, we are the districts." The AFL-CIO has this "We are the districts," hashtag "We are the districts," and this oddsinourfavor.org. Yes Magazine, a magazine about the future, about the Hunger Games are real. Teenage fans remind the world what Katniss is really fighting for. They ask, what if we used fantasy not as an escape from our world, but an invitation to look deeper into it? And they think about how teenage fans are fighting injustice in real life. This odds in our favor, we might see this irony of political resistance in consumer goods. People wearing Mockingjay pins. But this might also be a powerful social action or towards social justice, using social media or the three-finger salute from the Hunger Games. We might think about how we can stand up to economic inequality and the kinds of totalitarian power that we might not recognize as such in the present. And we see people in other countries picking this up as well. So Thai protesters being detained after they use that Hunger Games salute. This is certainly an example of when the Hunger Games become real. One of the students told reporters, the three-finger sign is a sign to show that I'm calling for my basic right to live my life. So the ideas from these books that are then also turned into films have real relevance to people in a variety of contexts. YA dystopia has staying power. So in Girls on Fire, we'll consider YA dystopia in social, cultural, political contexts. We're considering it from an American Studies and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies interdisciplinary perspective, as well as through more traditional literary approaches, and through a variety of themes from gender, culture, and justice, like the title of the class says, to power and race and community and sexuality, and a whole lot more. And the next part of this video introduction will look a little bit more at these themes.